All right, this is Jeff.
And Ryan.
And we're here from MACkite to kind of give you a two-wing versus each other. The Duotone Ventis versus the North Loft Pro. What are the positives and negatives to each? Which one shines higher in which areas in the light wing category? It's in a category that is growing a lot of momentum because obviously we all are addicted and want to get on the water, and it's not always blowing real hard, so we look to what is going to be the best wing to get us up and riding. And so we've got two wings here. Ventis is new for Duotone in 2024, and as well in the North lineup, the Loft Pro is their new dedicated light wind. So we got two light wind powerhouses. Both of us have been able to spend many hours on each one, and so we're here to break it down. All right, so if we look at it, why do you get a light wind wing? Because you want to get up and ride. So between the two, which one, Ryan, would you say has the best to get up and go for most riders?
Easiest to get up and go, I would say, would be that North Loft Pro. Easiest to handle, easiest to build speed with. I thought that it even pumped fairly well. Very stable through that. So that would be my winner for easy up and go. What yourself?
I agree. Definitely pull and go. Meaning you don't really have to pump it. I mean, it's got a lot of power on the low end. I know we've been out sub 10 knots with it. You were out yesterday on the 8, and there's times it was blowing under 10. And when we say pull and go, you don't have to pump your heart out and get all elevated heart rate to get going. I mean, you can just kind of give it a little breathing room, pull in a little bit, and boom, you're up and riding. So yeah, I would agree. Definitely for getting up, the ease would be the North for sure.
But I'd say the Ventis doesn't fall far behind there. Still a pretty easy one to get up and go. Maybe a little bit more technical with your handling, a little more technical with your pumping, but still builds that power and in speed really well. But we're going with the one winner for easiest.
For getting up. But you nailed it. The Ventis, you need to know how to pump. A little bit more pumpability you need to be able to do to get the same performance out of it. You can ride in the same, I think, back-to-back in the same wind conditions. Yeah. Someone's on a Ventis, someone's on the Loft Pro. You're both going to be able to get up. It's just a little different technique, and I would say a little more energy with the Ventis to get up and ride. So next thing we look at with a wing is once you're up and riding, what is the ride characteristic? We like to use the word drag because in light wind, you don't need things working against you. You want things to be working with you. So between the two wings, that's something I think we need to kind of break down here. Once up and riding, when they're going, you're doing your tacking or you're moving up, upwind. Which one maybe is a better upwind driver? Which one seems to have a little less drag, or are they both equal? I'll let you start, Ryan. What do you think?
Upwind driver. Might have to have you start on this one, Jeff.
I like to put you on the spot a little bit because we didn't talk about this. This is authentic conversation here.
My experience with the Mode Loft Pro was on a pretty large foil wing, which changes some things when you're talking upwind drive.
Okay. That's fair.
Upwind drive.
What was underneath the board was maybe
quite a bit
affecting
of drag coming from underneath the board. So I never really got to push it too much into those high speed, high wind scenarios. I did a little bit.
Well, I'll bail you out. You're onto something.
Yeah.
The Ventis has a little more drive, I feel, upwind ability. Like I said, maybe a little less on the lower end of getting up. You have to pump it more, but once up, it seems, I feel, that it had a little bit more drive and a little bit less of that drag once you're up and riding. Yeah. I don't know if it's because of the way the handles are articulated or just how the shape of it, but I felt it had a little, just on a score would be like maybe one score, but very close, but a little bit better drive. And oftentimes when I think of drive too, when you're in light wind, the wind can change and it can pick up. And that's where I saw, the Ventis seem to shine a little bit more. So, maybe in that low end drive articulated to high end drive, and it seemed to just its shape and the way it just felt like the speed of the wing and the drive it had to go upwind. I would put it just a notch above, not much, but a notch above the Loft Pro in that category when you're thinking about that. I think that leads us then to, obviously you buy the wing for light wind, but what happens when you do have your gust and when it does pick up? I'll kind of lead with this one. I think between the two, the Ventis shines there a little bit. I ride the 7 Ventis, and I've been on the Loft Pro 7 a lot, and where I like the Ventis better is in those gusts or when the wind did pick up. It can handle more wind.
Yep, I would agree. It does better in the high end of its range than what the Loft Pro does, for sure. I did notice that. That was pretty apparent.
And that's a trade-off that you see in wings. You know, if you have that early lift and the early rise in power, typically there's a trade-off on the high end. I have to hand it to the brands, though. I do feel they're getting better with that, especially in the light wind wing category. You know, trying to bridge that gap, getting up on foil, and then when it picks up. I mean, we have an easy answer when the wind picks up. Just go get a smaller wing. Yeah. But if you're looking for that, the trade-offs, I think, between the Loft Pro and the Ventis would be when it does pick up or is gusty, the Ventis has a little bit more of that high-end performance. How about just making a jive? Those of you who have ridden in light wind know when you get a big wing, and we experienced this yesterday, when you're on the water trying to make a jive or attack in really light wind. I don't know if you spent enough time on the Loft Pro yet, but which one do you think would seem to be a little bit more playful or easy to handle?
I thought they were fairly similar. I'd probably give this one to the Ventis. I thought the Ventis was a little easier to handle than what the Loft Pro was.
I would agree with that. I know that the leading edge is a little smaller, and I would agree with you that the Ventis seems to just, again, we have just a small notch up than the Loft Pro in those transitions. Not a lot, but just enough. But I think once up you're on foil and riding, both of them feel very smooth. You feel that consistent pull.
Yep.
So I mean, they definitely have that continual power, a transfer of wind to power to keep you rolling. And like you said, I think they both pump pretty well. Even when you're on foil and it gets really light, you can kind of dig yourself out of trouble with both of them quite well. Yeah. But I think. Go ahead.
I was going to say, another thing that I noticed was when you're up and riding, you're a little bit taller than I am, so you don't have this problem too much, but occasionally I have to be a little more cognizant of where that wingtip is when I'm up and riding, especially in the light winds. You get up there, you want to bring that wing down low to really maximize how much power you're getting. And I noticed that was significantly easier with the Loft Pro than what it was the Ventis. The Ventis, the whole time I was out there, I felt like I had to continuously be watching, making sure that it's not getting too close to the swell faces. When that swell comes up, that it's not dipping into that. Whereas the Loft Pro, I was able to relax a little bit easier, not really worry about that too much, check in on it every now and then, and didn't really have any issues with it dragging in the water, I would say. Where the Ventis, it took me a little adjusting to it, and I noticed that right away.
Agree, totally. I did have a little more drag yesterday when I was on the Ventis, because you were on the Loft Pro, I was on the Ventis.
Yeah.
I would agree totally with that. Riding the wave, I've been able to ride, sometimes we do get a good wave here when the wind is dying, and so I found both of them to be quite equal. Actually, I don't think I see one edging up more than the other. In my experience. I mean, first of all, when you're flagging out a 7 meter or 8 meter wing, that's a lot to be dragging behind you. But I think both of them seem to have fairly steadiness. I mean, I know they're not intended to be ridden in waves. I mean, you roll with the conditions that you have. But if we were to say that, nothing really stands out for me there. I mean, it's more survival when it's super light wind and you're trying to make sure everything doesn't fall in front of you and not run into it, stays out of the way, it doesn't go in the water. Yeah. So I'd say both of them seem to have, that stability.
I would agree. Yeah. They're fairly comparable there as far as that goes.
Obviously it's not your wave driver, but there are people that live in areas that's lighter wind and have a swell and you want to get out, and that was what a bonus was. So not only these can be a bonus, these two wings to get you up and riding the lightest of wind, but you can also catch that swell and still ride when it's marginal.
Yep.
With those. So
one more thing that we haven't talked about much with wings is how easy they are to flip over. That's one thing I've noticed as the wing gets bigger and bigger. it's more and more of an issue. Fall down, wing flips over on you, it's upside down, you got to flip it back over. Definitely when you get into those larger wings, I would say some are easier to flip over than others. Others want to stay in the water. You got to use the wind a little more technique. Some of them pop right up. And that's one thing that I noticed about the North Loft right away, is super easy to flip over. Didn't even have to apply much pressure with my top hand. And once it started going up in the air, it just flipped right over for me. The Ventis, I would say, it felt a little more difficult to me. It took a little bit more work to get it flipped over. Both of them in those light wind conditions. That's kind of what you're dealing with most wings. But I would say that was the Loft Pro was a clear winner in that category for me between those two.
I agree. Yeah, the Ventis seemed to want to flip a little easier, and when it was done, when you're trying to flip it, it stuck a little more. It was harder to get it to flip around. But the Loft Pro, yeah, definitely flipped around. I mean, these are good details. I mean, obviously, if you start riding light wind a lot, they're a little less frustrating.
Yeah.
You don't want to fall off foil in light wind as much as possible either. It can be harder to get up, but these are all things that kind of add up over time when you're on a wing. So, is there a clear winner? I think to recap, I mean, if you want between the Ventis and the Loft Pro, if you want which one's the easiest to get up and ride, as Ryan stated, I totally agree with him. North Loft Pro.
Yeah.
Kind of wins in that category. When you think of which one would help you be more versatile, meaning in the higher end, I think that's where the Duotone kind of shines.
Yeah.
So I think those are the two areas I think that kind of maybe separate the two. They're both very good light wind drivers. I mean, I would be happy with having one of those in my quiver. And it wouldn't feel like I'd be sacrificing much. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree, 100%. I could go with either one for any session and be happy with it. If I was somewhere where I was using it just for really light winds, maybe I had a 6 meter in my quiver or something to back up that high or that large size with, I would probably lean towards the mode.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't, if I was trying to stretch the range as much as possible, I would for sure go for the Ventis. Try and get a little more range, so maybe you don't have to have quite so many wings in your quiver.
Good point. So, and I think both of us agree, in the light wing market, these two kind of are our tops, one of our tops. I would think both of them.
I would put them top at the moment for what's out there.
And maybe later we'll do a larger array of light wind wings and see where they line up. But right now, I'd say these are 1 and 2 in my book. We hope this is helpful. We kind of broke it down a little bit based on our experience of riding. If you have any other questions about it, give us a call here at MACkite, send us an email or a chat. We'd be happy to help you out. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Ryan.
And enjoy the soak out there.
Video, hit us up with some free swag.
You shouldn't say that. That's true.
But we're like the Honey Shop brothers here.